Good, happy Monday morning, May 18, 2020. I'm Riley King, and welcome to this Monday morning edition of the Riley King Newscast, right here on the Riley King Network. We have a lot of news to get to this Monday morning, so let's begin. First up, one additional COVID-19 related death, 41 new cases announced. Cases total 3,596 in New Hampshire since the start of the pandemic. Death toll 172. The Department of Health and Human Services has announced one additional death related to COVID-19 and 41 new positive test results for COVID-19 in New Hampshire. There have now been 3,596 cases of COVID-19 diagnosed in New Hampshire. Several cases are still under investigation. Of those who complete information, one individual is under the age of 18 and the rest are adults, with 37% being women and 63% being men. The new cases reside in Hillsborough 23, Rockingham 9, Carroll 3, Belknap 2, Stratford 2, and Merrimack 1. The county of residence is being determined for one new case. The death was announced as a woman who was 60 years of age and older from Hillsborough County, bringing the state's total death to 172. 12 new COVID-19 hospitalizations were reported, with 359 of the 3,596 positive cases resulting in hospitalizations, according to health officials. Coronavirus in New Hampshire, what you need to know information. Let's take a look at that right now. And here's a look at that for all of you right now. There are 3,596 number of people in New Hampshire who have tested positive for COVID-19. 1,486,423 number of people in the United States who have tested positive. 172 number of deaths from COVID-19 in New Hampshire. 359 number of people who have been hospitalized with COVID-19 in New Hampshire, and 89,562 number of deaths from COVID-19 in the United States. This map of New Hampshire shows you where current cases of COVID-19 are. Manchester, 538. And this map of New Hampshire shows you where total cases of COVID-19 are. Manchester, 832. Now let's take a look at these three charts. Let's do this chart first. New cases each day in New Hampshire. In the purple, daily new positive COVID-19 cases. In the orange, new hospitalizations. And in the red, deaths. This chart here, current cases. Current COVID-19 cases in the purple, and current hospitalizations in the orange. In this chart here, total cases. Total COVID-19 cases in the purple, total hospitalizations in the orange, red, deaths in the blue, recovered. This chart here shows you by age group. This chart here shows you by female and male. This chart here shows you risk information. And then this chart here, race/ethnicity of cases. In this chart here, percent of New Hampshire population. Your common symptoms: fever, lack of smell, cough, chills, and difficult breathing, how it spreads, and prevention tips. Be sure to stay with the Riley King Network for the latest of your COVID-19 information. Sit-down meals return to some New Hampshire restaurants starting today. Restaurants can serve at outdoor seating or takeout, no inside seating. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Tyler Dumont.
Some work can't stop because our communities need you, which is why we're working to keep you working.
The tables are in place.
And everything's 6 feet apart.
For the first time in 28 years, the parking lot at Billy's Sports Bar in Manchester will become its only dining and drinking area. It's just one of New Hampshire's restaurants ready to reopen Monday to customers under specific state guidelines.
People have been calling, making reservations already. People are excited about coming out.
Adapting to change has been the only way to survive COVID-19's punch on food spots, which have been limited to takeout only since mid-March. Many businesses were forced to cut staff, hours, and menus and apply for loans to stay open. Some who couldn't closed permanently. But beginning tomorrow, customers can again go sit down for a meal, as long as they're willing to sit outside and keep their distance. Buffets and functions still aren't allowed, and waitstaff must wear cloth coverings or masks. With waiting areas closed, reservations are recommended to ensure tables are disinfected. Sanitizing stations must also be available.
We can pretty much recreate a whole restaurant outside.
In Ringe, staff has returned to the Woodbound Inn for training to reopen Wednesday with a dinner for first responders and healthcare workers before welcoming the public back on Thursday.
It's a soft opening to help the staff go through the motions of being open.
Unlike urban and downtown restaurants often limited by storefront and sidewalk space, owner Rudy Rosales has 45 acres to make the new dining measures work, but after having to postpone weddings through July and refund lodging deposits, he says the clock is ticking to make up some of the lost revenue.
In our vision, we have 7 weeks to make this work.
The outdoor seating only option lasts at least through the end of the month when the governor says his stay-at-home order will be revisited. Reporting live in Manchester tonight, Tyler Dumont, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Dow futures jumped nearly 300 points, rebounding from last week's losses. Futures contracts tied to major U.S. stock index rose early Monday as investors weighed comments by Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell on the state of the economic against signs of optimism as states begin to reopen for business over the weekend. Obama openly criticizes Trump administration coronavirus response. Let's take a listen to that video from ABC News.
To U.S. politics now, and former President Obama criticizing the Trump administration's handling of the coronavirus crisis. ABC's Rachel Scott joins us from Washington with more. Good morning to you, Rachel.
Eva, good morning. This is a rare public rebuke from former President Barack Obama criticizing the coronavirus response. And it comes just 1 week after he slammed the Trump administration's handling of the pandemic on a private call with his former staffers, calling it, quote, an absolute chaotic disaster. This time in a public online commencement address for graduating seniors at historically black colleges and universities, Obama said the U.S. is lacking leadership.
More than anything, this pandemic has finally torn back the curtain on the idea that so many of the folks in charge know what they're doing. A lot of them aren't even pretending to be in charge. If the world's going to get better, it's going to be up to you.
And those comments come as the Trump administration blames their predecessors for a depleted stockpile 3 years into the president's term, claiming they left it empty. Eva?
And Rachel, an investigation is now underway into the firing of the State Department Inspector General. Democrats say he was investigating Secretary of State Mike Pompeo.
Yeah, that's right, Eva. That Friday night firing of State Department Inspector General Steve Linick has now sparked a Democratic investigation. Lawmakers believe this was politically motivated. A White House official tells me this move was recommended by the Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, but Democrats say Pompeo was also being investigated himself. A congressional aide telling us the IG was looking into whether Pompeo had misused the political appointee to perform personal tasks for himself and his wife. Democrats are accusing the president of trying to protect one of his most loyal supporters, but the president said he lost confidence in Linick and he will be removed in the next 30 days. Dan?
Okay, thank you, Eva and Rachel. Really appreciate it. So much to talk about here. So let's bring in our chief anchor, George Stephanopoulos, who will be hosting this week later this morning. I asked them to find a bigger table.
Well, it's good to be back in the studio. We have the requisite 6 feet.
We do, and then some. So let's start with this story about the State Department. We have this news that the president fired the investigator, the IG. This is the person supposed to be looking after waste and fraud. Democrats are crying foul here. What are the consequences of this story?
Well, let's talk about it. First of all, the president does have the legal authority to do this. He's given the notice. They have 30 days to execute this. But it's part of an unprecedented move by the president to take away independent oversight. This is the fourth move to get rid of an inspector general in the last several weeks. He fired the inspector general for the intelligence community, for the Defense Department, for the Department of Health and Human Services, now the State Department as well. And the question is why. As you see, Democrats are going to investigate right now. They say that the inspector general was looking into the practices of Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State. This is not going to go away anytime soon. And as I said, even though presidents in the past have fired inspectors generals, we've never seen a string of firings like this. You even have some Republicans, including Mitt Romney and Susan Collins, now raising questions about the president's actions.
Let's talk about somebody else who's raising questions about the president, former President Barack Obama. Are we more likely to see more of him as we head into November now?
I think it's only just begun, and it's been a pretty extraordinary week when you look at the actions of President Trump and President Obama. I think President Trump has had something like 150 tweets over the last week that take on President Obama. He's trying to raise questions again about the Russia investigation, what he calls Obamagate, something that he has no charges to back up, a crime he charges but doesn't have any evidence to back it up. And what you're now seeing is President Obama begin his effort, I think, to become Joe Biden's chief surrogate in this campaign for president, stepping out first with these not-so-veiled comments about the president's COVID response. I think you're going to see more of that in the future, and maybe it's most telling. What's most telling is the President Obama's one-word tweet on Thursday in response to President Trump. The word was vote.
All right. Quite pointed. George, thank you very much. Great to see you on a Sunday morning. I want to remind everybody, George has a big show this morning. He's going to go one-on-one with the White House trade advisor, Peter Navarro, for more on the sweeping economic impact of this pandemic. Plus, Senator Bernie Sanders comes on to talk about the Democrats' push for more coronavirus stimulus funding. That's coming up later this morning right here on ABC. George, thank you again.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And that does it for this morning edition of the Riley King Newscast right here on the Riley King Network. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you back here later on today for another newscast. I'll have a news report coming up in a little bit. Goodbye, everyone.